Billionaire Elon Musk, known for his high-profile meetings and world-changing innovations, never expects to find himself at a rundown gas station in the middle of nowhere. But tonight, that's exactly where he is. It's late at night, and Elon has been driving for hours, lost in thought about Tesla's latest breakthroughs and the future of SpaceX. His car is running low on fuel, so he pulls into a small, outdated gas station on the side of a quiet highway. The station looks ancient, with flickering lights and worn-out pumps that appear as if they haven't been updated in decades. As Elon steps out of his car, stretching his legs and breathing in the cool night air, he feels a momentary disconnect. Usually, his life is filled with high-stakes meetings, world-changing conversations, and the cutting-edge technologies he's helping create. But tonight, he's just another man refueling on a long, lonely drive. He takes a moment to inhale the fresh night air, the calmness of the roadside almost surreal against the chaos of his usual routine. There's something strangely grounding about it, as though the world has momentarily paused for him to catch a breath. The gas station itself feels trapped in time. The dim lights from the old fluorescent bulbs buzz quietly, casting long shadows across the cracked concrete. It's the kind of place you'd expect to see in a forgotten town, out of place and out of sync with the rapid pace of innovation he's used to. A faint smell of gasoline lingers in the air, mixing with the scent of the cool evening breeze. As he steps inside, Elon notices a young man behind the counter. The clerk, likely in his late 20s, looks up without the typical awe or recognition that usually accompanies encounters with Elon Musk. Instead, the young man offers a polite but neutral nod. There's a brief flicker of surprise in his eyes when he realizes who it is, but he doesn't let it show. No wide-eyed admiration, no excited chatter. Just a calm, almost indifferent demeanor. It feels different to Elon, almost unsettling. This reaction, or lack thereof, catches Elon off guard. For someone who's used to being treated like a celebrity, the coolness of this young man is odd, but it also gives him a strange sense of relief. No fanfare, no expectations. Just a quiet, unremarkable moment in the middle of nowhere. Feeling out of place in his own world for once, Elon steps further into the dimly lit store. The small talk he often relies on to break the ice feels forced in this unfamiliar setting. "Long shift?" he asks, trying to make conversation. The clerk, whose name is Chris, responds without skipping a beat. "Yeah, just another night. Keeps me busy, though." Elon nods, looking at Chris more intently now, trying to gauge the young man's personality. The conversation drifts to casual topics, Elon mentioning how long his drive has been and the quiet of the night. But there's something about Chris's calm demeanor that sticks with him. Elon's curiosity is piqued. This interaction feels like it's moving in a different direction than the usual fan encounters he's accustomed to. At some point, Chris looks up from the counter, scanning Elon's face for recognition. Then, with a slight tilt of his head, he asks, "You look familiar. Are you someone important?" Elon smiles, sensing an opportunity to keep the mystery alive for just a little longer. "I suppose I've done a few things here and there." Chris chuckles softly, not buying into any of the usual grandeur. "Well, I don't really follow that stuff, just trying to get by, but I do like learning new things on my own time." There it is, a response that's entirely different from what Elon is used to. Instead of fawning over him, Chris's response feels grounded. He's not starstruck. He's not impressed by Elon's fame or status. Instead, he's just another person, living his life and focused on his own path. Elon, intrigued by Chris's indifference, presses on. "What kind of things do you learn?" he asks, genuinely curious. Chris looks around as if checking to see if anyone's listening, then leans slightly closer as if sharing a secret. Mostly tech stuff, AI, computer programming, space. I don't have a fancy degree, but I learn from books and online courses. I've even built a few things, though I'm still working on my projects. Elon's interest is instantly piqued. Here's a self-taught man working in a small gas station who's teaching himself concepts that many of the world's best minds are still grappling with. Like what? Elon presses, now leaning in to hear more. Chris hesitates for a moment, then opens up. I've been working on a self-learning AI system. It's a basic prototype right now, but it adapts to different inputs over time. It's not much, but it works. Elon stares at him, his curiosity growing. He can see the raw potential in Chris's words, in the simplicity of his project. "You built this on your own?" he asks, almost incredulously. Chris nods proudly, his eyes lighting up for the first time in the conversation. "Yeah, I just started with what I could find online, learning bit by bit. It took time, but I'm getting somewhere with it." Elon can't help but be impressed. This young man, with no formal training, has created something that most people would need years of schooling to even understand. This could be the moment that changes everything. As Chris continues to explain his AI project, Elon realizes that this unexpected pit stop is more than just a fuel break. It might just be the beginning of something far more significant. Elon leans against the counter, his gaze still fixed on Chris. There's a quiet intensity in the air now. For once, he's not thinking about deadlines or global plans. Instead, he's drawn to the mystery of the young man standing in front of him. It's strange to find someone like Chris, who seems both unremarkable yet full of potential, working in a place like this. The hum of the gas station, the buzz of the flickering lights, and the occasional sound of tires crunching on the gravel outside all seem to fade into the background as the two men continue their conversation. Elon, ever the seeker of minds that think differently, feels an undeniable pull to understand what drives Chris. "So you've built this AI on your own, huh?" Elon's tone is measured, a mixture of curiosity and genuine respect. "Most people with your skill would be working for a tech company by now." Chris shrugs again, his demeanor still relaxed, but there's a quiet pride in his eyes. "I never really thought about working for someone else. I've always liked doing things on my own. I guess I'm still figuring out where all this fits." Elon nods thoughtfully, his mind already processing the possibilities. It's clear Chris doesn't crave the fame or the accolades. He's driven by something deeper, something more intrinsic. The world that Elon inhabits, where everything moves at breakneck speed and attention is a currency, feels almost alien here. It's oddly refreshing. There's a slight pause as Chris pulls out a small, battered laptop from behind the counter. The device seems out of place in the otherwise mundane surroundings of the gas station, but to Chris, it's a portal to something bigger. As he opens it up and taps a few keys, the screen flickers to life, displaying a simple interface, a basic AI model, but functional. Elon watches as Chris explains the system with a level of comfort that suggests he's talked about it before, but not often. "It's still early," Chris continues, "but it learns from the data you give it, adapts and evolves over time. I'm still refining it, but it's working. It's just a start, but it's something." Elon leans in closer, inspecting the prototype. His mind races, connecting dots, considering how something like this could be developed further. "This could revolutionize adaptive technology," he says, his voice dropping lower with the weight of the thought. "It's got potential, a lot of it." Chris looks down at his laptop, a slight flush creeping onto his face. The praise is unexpected, and it's clear he's not used to being in the spotlight. His fingers hover nervously over the keyboard, as if unsure whether he should be sharing something so personal with someone like Elon. But Elon's encouragement feels genuine, not like the usual dismissive nods from people who don't take him seriously. "You really think so?" Chris asks, his voice softer now. "Absolutely," Elon responds, his tone confident. "It's raw, sure, but that's the best part. Raw potential can go in so many directions. You could push this further. If you're interested, we could talk about taking it to the next level." Chris's eyes widen. There's a brief silence as he processes Elon's words. The weight of the offer hangs in the air, tangible yet impossible to grasp. A self-taught programmer, working alone in a small gas station, suddenly finding himself at the precipice of an opportunity most would kill for. The magnitude of the moment is not lost on him, but the reality of it seems almost surreal. He runs a hand through his hair, unsure of how to respond. "I don't know. I mean, I never thought I'd be talking to someone like you about something like this. This isn't really my world." Elon gives a small, knowing smile. "I didn't think it would be mine either, until I found out how much power there is in unexpected places. You don't need a fancy title or a degree to make a difference, Chris. Sometimes the most innovative ideas come from people who've never been told they couldn't do something." Chris absorbs the words quietly, the weight of them slowly sinking in. His gaze drops to the worn-out counter, and for a moment, he seems to be lost in thought. The offer is a dream, one he's been silently working toward for years but never expected to reach so suddenly. A career built on self-taught skills, honed in the quiet of a gas station at night. Now, it feels like everything is about to change. He looks back up at Elon, his expression unreadable for a moment before a small, almost incredulous smile flickers at the corners of his lips. "You're serious?" he asks, his voice a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Elon's response is firm, his gaze unwavering. "I wouldn't offer if I wasn't. You've got talent. It's rare. We need people who think outside the box, people who challenge the status quo. If you're ready to take the leap, we'd love to work with you." For a moment, Chris just stands there, processing the words. His mind whirls, considering all the possibilities. It feels like the kind of opportunity you don't just stumble into. It's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. But the uncertainty, the fear of stepping into a world that's entirely unknown to him, makes the decision even harder. Finally, he speaks, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what to say." Elon hands him a business card, his voice calm and patient. "Think it over. No rush. But if you want to take that next step, I'm here." Chris stares at the card, his fingers brushing lightly over it as if trying to comprehend the enormity of what's just been offered. His heart beats faster now, the weight of the moment sinking in. "Thank you," he says, his voice trembling slightly with a mix of excitement and disbelief. "I'll definitely think about it." As Chris looks up from the card, Elon offers a smile that feels both understanding and reassuring, as if to say, "Whatever you decide, it's the right choice." The night outside seems quieter now, as if the world is holding its breath for the decision Chris is about to make. But for now, he's left with the moment, standing in the doorway of a life-altering opportunity, unsure but ready to take that first step. And in that silence, the gas station, with all its faded charm, somehow becomes the starting point for a journey neither of them could have anticipated. The next morning, Chris wakes up to the blaring sound of his alarm, but the weight in his chest isn't from the usual grogginess of a long shift ahead. Instead, it's the conversation with Elon Musk that lingers, hovering over him like an unspoken promise. The business card is still in his pocket, a small, crisp piece of paper that somehow feels heavier than it should. His hands tremble slightly when he pulls it out, staring at Elon's name printed in bold black letters. He takes a deep breath, trying to steady his thoughts. What now? He never expected his life to change overnight, let alone in such an unusual way. A part of him still can't quite grasp the magnitude of the opportunity he's been given. The feeling of disbelief hasn't quite faded, but the part of him that's always yearned for something more, something beyond the monotony of his job, starts to push through the doubt. With a quiet resolve, he pulls on his jacket and heads out the door, clutching the card tightly in his hand. There's something about the way Elon spoke, the way his words didn't feel forced or scripted, that makes him believe this isn't just another empty offer. Maybe this is the real deal. As he walks into the gas station, Chris can't shake the nervous energy bubbling inside him. The familiar sounds of the station, tires on gravel, the low hum of the pumps, feel surreal this morning. The space that once seemed so ordinary now feels like the backdrop of something much bigger. His hands are busy, adjusting the small stack of papers on the counter, but his mind is elsewhere, running over the conversation from last night. Elon had said, "You don't need a fancy title or a degree to make a difference." That thought circles in Chris's mind, giving him a strange sense of confidence. It's one thing to believe in your abilities. It's another when someone like Elon Musk sees potential in you. Just as Chris is lost in thought, the bell above the door rings. He looks up, half expecting to see a customer, but instead it's Elon again, standing in the doorway. The tall figure looks just as out of place here as he did last night. But this time, there's a clear sense of purpose in his stride. No fanfare, no distractions, just a straightforward, confident presence. "Morning, Chris," Elon greets, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips as he steps inside. Chris stands up straight, his stomach doing a flip. "Hey, morning," he stammers. The sudden reality of the situation hits him harder now in this face-to-face meeting. He feels out of his depth, unsure of what to say or how to act. The gravity of last night's conversation feels even more surreal in the light of day. Elon glances at the counter, taking a moment to look around. "You've been thinking about our conversation, I hope," he asks casually, his tone light, but with an edge of genuine curiosity. Chris hesitates for a moment, his hands fidgeting with the corner of a receipt. "Yeah, I have," he admits, his voice quieter than he intended. "I'm just not sure where to start. It feels like such a big jump, you know." Elon nods, his expression sympathetic but unwavering. "It is a big step, but sometimes those are the ones that matter the most." His eyes lock onto Chris's, and for a brief second, Chris sees something in Elon's gaze, an understanding. He knows what it's like to make a leap of faith, to trust in something bigger than yourself. Chris can feel the weight of Elon's words pressing on him, a challenge he's never really faced before. He's always played it safe, stayed in the shadows, hidden behind the excuse that he wasn't enough or that he didn't belong. But now, it feels like all those barriers are starting to crumble, one by one. "What makes you think I can do this?" Chris blurts out, unable to contain the doubt that still lingers in his mind. Elon's smile deepens, and he takes a small step closer. "Because you already are. You built something on your own, without guidance, without the usual resources, and that's rare. Most people wait for the world to give them permission to succeed. You didn't." Chris absorbs the words, his mind racing. Elon's confidence in him isn't something that can be easily dismissed. The enormity of the decision starts to feel less like a weight and more like a potential waiting to be tapped into. After a long pause, Chris looks up, meeting Elon's gaze. "So, what do I need to do?" he asks, his voice steady now, no longer hesitant. Elon leans back slightly, hands in his pockets, and gives Chris a thoughtful look. "First, you start by believing that you have something to offer. Then, we take it from there. Let's see how far we can push this idea of yours, and if you're willing to take the risk, we'll make it happen." The room feels charged now, as if Chris is standing on the edge of something profound. The doubt, the fear, they still exist, but they are now tempered by a sense of possibility. He's no longer just a guy at a gas station. He's someone who has the chance to build something that could change the future. And for the first time in his life, that future doesn't feel out of reach. "All right," Chris says finally, his voice steady and resolute. "I'm in. Let's see where this goes." Elon's smile widens. "Good, that's the spirit." With that, they shake hands, and in that simple gesture, a new chapter begins for Chris. The weight of the decision settles in him, but this time, it feels like a choice he's finally ready to make. As Elon walks out of the station, Chris stands there for a moment, still processing. The world outside seems brighter now, more open. He's stepping into the unknown, but for the first time, he's not afraid. His journey is just beginning. The days following Chris's decision blur together in a whirlwind of anticipation and doubt. His life, once marked by routine shifts at the gas station, now feels like it's shifting on its axis. There are moments when he feels confident, ready to dive into this unknown future, but just as often, the weight of his decision presses down on him. What have I gotten myself into? Elon, as promised, reaches out. He arranges a meeting at Tesla's headquarters, a place that feels as distant from Chris's former life as the moon. Chris has never been in a place like this, sleek, polished, full of people with titles he doesn't understand. But today is different. Today, he's here, not as an outsider, but as someone invited to see what could be his new reality. And in a strange twist, he can't help but feel both excited and out of place, like an intruder at a party he wasn't sure he was meant to attend. The day arrives and Chris steps out of the taxi in front of Tesla's headquarters, his heart pounding in his chest. The building is imposing, glass and steel, sleek and modern, far from the faded gas station and the small apartment where he spent most of his nights tinkering with code. He takes a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. It's too late to turn back now. Inside, the atmosphere is just as intimidating. He's ushered through high-tech halls, passing teams of engineers who are deep in discussion, their eyes fixed on screens showing complex data and blueprints. Chris feels a rush of anxiety. How could someone like him, who's never set foot in a formal tech environment, possibly fit in? But then, Elon appears, a reassuring smile on his face. "You made it," he says with an easy confidence, as if it's no big deal. He leads Chris into a small conference room where a few engineers are already waiting. The moment Chris walks in, the room falls silent. He can feel their eyes on him, sizing him up in the same way he had sized up Elon when they first met. "Chris," Elon begins, "this is where the magic happens." He gestures to the group, his voice filled with pride. "These guys are working on some of the most advanced tech in the world. And now, we want to hear your ideas. Tell us what you've got." The sudden shift in dynamic is overwhelming. Chris stands at the front of the room, feeling the weight of the moment. But something in Elon's calm demeanor gives him the confidence to speak up. "Well, I've been working on an AI prototype," Chris starts, his voice slightly shaky at first. "It's a self-learning system. It adapts to input over time and becomes smarter the more data you give it. It's not much yet, but it works." The engineers exchange glances, some intrigued, others skeptical. But then one of them, a middle-aged man with glasses, speaks up. "You're saying this AI learns on its own, without manual adjustments?" His tone is skeptical, but intrigued. Chris nods, his eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. "Yes, the idea is that over time it'll be able to handle more complex tasks and adjust its processes without human interference. The more it interacts with its environment, the better it gets." There's a moment of silence in the room as everyone processes the idea. Elon looks thoughtful, nodding slowly as he listens. Finally, he speaks. "It's a powerful concept. There's huge potential here. But, Chris, What we're looking for isn't just an idea. We need to see it in action. We need results. Chris swallows hard. His nerves are running wild, but there's a fire inside him now, fueled by the challenge. "I've got a working prototype," he says, "but it's basic. It's far from perfect, but I can show you how it works." He pulls out his laptop and connects it to the projector. As the screen lights up, the engineers crowd around, their eyes narrowing in concentration. For the first time since he stepped into the room, Chris feels like he belongs. He begins explaining the interface, demonstrating how the AI adapts to input. There's no magic trick, just the raw power of his creation. The engineers watch, and their skepticism starts to melt away. Elon watches quietly from the side, his arms crossed but his expression unreadable. Chris's hands move confidently now, guiding the group through the system he's built, showing them its potential. And when the AI successfully adjusts to a new input, a murmur of approval ripples through the room. Chris can feel the tension lift, replaced by something else. Excitement. Maybe even awe. The moment the demonstration is over, Elon claps lightly. "That," he says, his voice carrying authority, "is impressive. You've got something here, Chris?" A mix of pride and disbelief washes over Chris. It's one thing to have faith in your own work, but it's another when people who live and breathe this technology start to see it too. Elon turns to the engineers. "This is the kind of thinking we need," he says. "We're going to give Chris the resources to take this further. This is just the beginning." As the meeting winds down, Elon pulls Chris aside. "I've been around a lot of smart people," Elon says quietly, "but you've got something different. I knew you had potential from the moment we met. We're going to do great things together." Chris stands there, his mind racing. He came here as an outsider, unsure if he even belonged in this world. But now, with Elon's words in his ears and the approval of the team around him, the future feels suddenly within his grasp. Later that day, as Chris walks out of Tesla's headquarters, the weight of the world feels a little lighter. He's no longer just a self-taught coder working late into the night in a small gas station. He's someone whose work has the potential to change the future. The journey ahead isn't easy. There's still so much to learn, so much to prove. But for the first time, Chris believes it's possible. And that belief, more than anything else, is what will drive him forward. The following weeks move in a blur. Chris finds himself back at Tesla's headquarters more often than not, surrounded by a team of brilliant engineers, developers, and designers, all dedicated to pushing the boundaries of what he'd created. His AI prototype, once just a concept born out of late-night tinkering at the gas station, is now a real project with a future that feels more tangible each day. But with that realization comes pressure, and Chris feels the weight of it. There are days when the task ahead seems insurmountable. His lack of formal education often makes him feel like an imposter in a room full of highly qualified professionals. Even with the knowledge he's gained through years of self-study, the environment at Tesla is still intimidating. Its advanced technology a constant reminder of how far he's come, and how far he still has to go. One afternoon, after another round of intense meetings, Chris finds himself in Elon's office, facing the man who's made it all possible. The room is sleek, minimalist, with large windows that offer a panoramic view of the campus below. Elon stands by his desk, reviewing some documents, but he looks up as Chris enters, offering a smile that, while brief, feels genuine. "Hey, Chris, I know you've been working hard," Elon says as he motions for Chris to take a seat. "How are you holding up?" Chris exhales slowly, sinking into the chair. It's a lot to process. Some days it feels like I'm still trying to catch up. I didn't expect things to move this fast. It's been great, but sometimes I wonder if I'm even good enough to be here." Elon sets the papers aside, leaning back in his chair. His gaze is steady, considering before he speaks. "Let me tell you something," he begins, his voice calm but firm. "When I first started, there were plenty of people who thought I was out of my mind. People told me I couldn't do it, but I kept going, because I believed in what I was building, and I knew that if I surrounded myself with the right people, we'd get there together." Chris listens intently, the weight of Elon's words slowly sinking in. The confidence in Elon's voice has always been present, but hearing it directed at him is something different. It's not just about the technology now. It's about the people, about belief. "You're not here because of luck, Chris," Elon continues. "You're here because you've got something rare. That's what I saw in you from the beginning. And it's not just about the code you write or the algorithms you build. It's your mindset, the way you approach problems. You've got a way of thinking that most people don't." Chris feels a flush of pride, but also a surge of doubt. "I get that. But what if I'm just pretending? What if all of this is too much? Maybe I've gone too far and I don't really belong here." Elon shakes his head, his eyes never leaving Chris. "That's exactly why you belong here. Because you're willing to ask yourself those questions. Because you push yourself further than most people would ever dare. But you don't do it alone, and you don't have to do it alone." There's a pause, the air thick with anticipation. Chris looks at Elon, trying to read the unspoken words in his expression. Elon leans forward, a serious look now taking over his face. "I want you to lead this project, Chris," Elon says, his voice unwavering. "Not as a junior member of the team, not as a cog in the machine. I want you to take charge. Your vision, your ideas, they're what will drive this forward. And if you're ready, I'll give you the resources to make it happen." The words hang in the air, and Chris can barely breathe for a moment. The weight of the offer is almost too much to comprehend. Leading the project? He's never even considered himself as someone who could be in charge of anything, let alone something this monumental. "Are you serious?" Chris finally asks, his voice barely above a whisper. The disbelief in his tone is clear, even to himself. This isn't just a job offer. It's a chance to shape the future. Elon smiles, a small but meaningful curve of his lips. "I've never been more serious about anything. You've got what it takes, Chris. It's time you stopped doubting yourself." Chris's mind races. A flood of thoughts crashes through him. Self-doubt, excitement, fear, and an overwhelming sense of disbelief. For so long, he had just been trying to make it to the next day, unsure if his self-taught skills would ever take him anywhere. But here, in this moment, with Elon offering him the opportunity to lead, everything changes. "All right," Chris says, his voice steadier now, but his heart is pounding in his chest. "I'm in. Let's do it." Elon's smile deepens. "I knew you would be." As Chris stands to leave the office, the weight of the decision settles over him, but this time it feels different. There's no hesitation, no second guessing. He's ready. For the first time, he feels like he belongs here, not because of his background or his lack of a degree, but because of the work he's done, the ideas he's brought to the table, and the trust Elon has placed in him. As he walks out of the office, a new chapter of his life begins. And for the first time, Chris doesn't feel like an imposter. He feels like a leader. The journey ahead will be difficult. There will be setbacks, challenges, and moments of doubt. But for Chris, the path is clear. And with each step forward, he knows he's not alone anymore. He has a team, a mentor, and most importantly, the belief in himself that he never had before. Chris spends the next few days in a haze of activity. There's so much to learn, so much to prove, but for the first time, he doesn't feel overwhelmed by it. The weight of Elon's offer is now a driving force, not a burden. Every morning, he wakes up earlier than he ever did when he worked at the gas station, eager to dive into the work, to make something of himself that he never thought possible. And yet, even as his days are packed with meetings, brainstorming sessions, and long hours in front of his laptop, there are moments when doubt creeps back in, when he questions if he's truly capable of leading the project. But each time that doubt surfaces, he reminds himself, "I'm here because I've earned this." And with every step forward, every piece of code he refines, every conversation with Elon, that belief grows stronger. One afternoon, after a particularly intense meeting with his new team, Chris finds himself in the quiet solitude of the small office space he's been assigned. The room, like everything else at Tesla, is sleek and modern, much more than he ever expected. The high-tech equipment, the walls lined with screens displaying real-time data, all of it feels so far from the dusty counter of the gas station. But in this space, with the hum of machines and the soft clicks of his keyboard filling the silence, he feels a sense of purpose. Elon stops by the office, knocking gently before entering. There's a warmth in his demeanor, but also a sharp focus that Chris has come to recognize. Elon's eyes fall on Chris's screen, where the AI system is running through its latest iteration. "You've made progress," Elon says, a subtle but genuine note of approval in his voice. Chris glances at Elon, feeling the weight of his gaze, but also the quiet pride in it. "I think we're getting close to something big," Chris replies, his voice filled with conviction. It's not the tentative uncertainty he felt in the early days, but a quiet confidence that's growing within him. Elon leans against the doorframe, his arms crossed. "You've got the right mindset, but remember, the real challenge comes now. Making this work is one thing, but scaling it, refining it for real-world applications, that's where the magic happens." Chris nods, absorbing the weight of Elon's words. "I know. It's daunting, but I'm ready for it." Elon studies him for a moment, then smiles. "Good. You've got a team behind you, Chris. Don't forget that. You're not in this alone." The reassurance is subtle, but it lands deeply within Chris. It's the reminder he needs, the one that pushes him to keep going even when the path ahead seems uncertain. For the first time, he feels like he's not just part of something, he's leading it, and that shift, from doubting himself to stepping into his role with confidence, is both exhilarating and terrifying. Later that evening, as Chris leaves the office, he steps out into the cool night air, taking a moment to breathe. The campus is quiet now, the once bustling halls of Tesla calming down as employees begin to wrap up their day. He walks past the sleek buildings, feeling a sense of belonging that wasn't there before. In these halls, he's no longer the outsider. He's a part of something bigger, a catalyst for change in a company that's shaping the future. His thoughts drift back to that first night at the gas station, when he had no idea where this journey would take him. It feels like a lifetime ago, and yet, in a way, it's only just beginning. Chris takes out his phone, staring for a moment at Elon's business card still stored in his contacts. The simple message, "Think about it. No rush. This could be a game changer for you." It seems like a lifetime ago that it was just a possibility. But now, as Chris stands here at the threshold of a new chapter, that message feels more like a prophecy fulfilled. He taps out a quick text to Elon. "Thanks for believing in me. I won't let you down." As he hits send, he feels a small wave of gratitude wash over him. For the first time, the future feels open and full of promise. There are still hurdles to overcome, still challenges ahead. But Chris knows one thing for certain. He's ready for them. With a final glance at the stars above, Chris turns and walks back into the building. A new beginning is here, and he's no longer the man who worked at a gas station. He's someone who's on the verge of changing the world. The days blur into one another as Chris settles into his new role at Tesla, It's a life far removed from the one he used to know. The dimly lit aisles of the gas station, the hum of the old pumps, the quiet isolation of his small apartment. Now he's immersed in the rapid pace of innovation, surrounded by engineers, developers, and a team of people who are all pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But amidst the excitement, there's something gnawing at him. A quiet whisper of doubt that seems to follow him wherever he goes. It's not the technical challenges he's facing, the code, the algorithms, the system refinements. Those he can handle. It's the other part, the part that feels out of his depth. Leadership. Every morning as he walks into the office, he's reminded of the responsibility that comes with his new role. He's no longer just a programmer. He's the one driving the project forward. And that weight, heavy as it is, sits on his shoulders every hour of every day. His team looks to him for direction, for confidence, and more often than not, he wonders if he's ready to provide it. That evening, as the sun begins to set, Chris sits at his desk, the faint glow of his computer screen illuminating the tired lines of his face. His mind races as he sifts through the data he's been analyzing for hours. The AI model is performing better than expected, but there's still so much to do. His phone buzzes on the desk, a text from his old friend Lucas. "You good? Haven't heard from you in a while. You've been working non-stop, huh?" Chris stares at the message for a moment, the familiar name pulling him back to his past. He hasn't talked to Lucas much since joining Tesla. Between the late nights and the growing pressure to lead, it's been hard to maintain the relationships that used to mean so much to him. Lucas was the one who encouraged him to pursue coding in the first place, the one who believed in him when Chris couldn't see it himself. Chris sighs and begins typing a response. "Yeah, a lot's changed. New job, new life, feels like it's moving too fast. Sometimes I'm not sure I'm cut out for this." He hits send, feeling a strange sense of relief. As much as the world around him has changed, his doubts are still the same, unseen but persistent. Moments like this, when he pauses and allows himself to be vulnerable, bring the weight of it all to the forefront. His phone buzzes again. Lucas's reply is swift. "You always second-guess yourself, man, but look where you are. This is what you've worked for. Don't let it slip away just because it feels tough." Chris leans back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "What if it's all too much?" he types, his fingers hesitating on the keys. "What if I'm not ready to lead?" Lucas's reply is instant. "You were ready the moment you took the leap. Trust me, you've got this. You just have to decide that you do." Chris stares at the screen, the words sitting with him longer than they should. He reads them again. The decision about whether he can really take this on, about whether he's truly cut out for this next level of responsibility, has been weighing on him ever since Elon first offered him the lead role in the project. It wasn't just an opportunity, it was a test. And deep down, Chris knew he wasn't just testing his skills, he was testing his own belief in himself. He takes a deep breath, the weight in his chest growing heavier. What if Lucas is right? What if he's been running from the truth all along? That he's always had the potential to do something like this, but he's been too afraid to acknowledge it. Chris's phone buzzes again. This time it's an email from Elon. He opens it and reads the short, direct message. "Meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We need to discuss next steps for the AI project. Hope you're ready to take things to the next level." The words jump off the screen, a reminder of the growing expectations. And as he stares at the message, something clicks inside him. He closes his eyes for a moment, visualizing everything that has brought him here. His late-night coding sessions, the hours spent trying to understand concepts that felt foreign, the leap of faith he took when he said yes to Elon's offer. "I can do this," he thinks. The decision isn't just about technical capability anymore. It's about whether he believes in himself enough to take the lead. to step up and guide this project, and by extension, his team, toward something greater. It's a new chapter, one that requires him to let go of the fear of failure and embrace the unknown. His phone buzzes again. Another message from Lucas. "Just remember, you wouldn't be there if you didn't deserve it. Go get 'em, champ." Chris smiles faintly at the words. For the first time in days, the pressure feels a little less heavy. He's not just a coder, he's a leader now. And whether he's fully ready or not, he knows it's time to step up. With a final glance at his screen, Chris closes his laptop. He stands up from the desk, takes a long look out of the window, and feels the cool night air sweep through the open window. For the first time, he doesn't feel the weight of doubt pulling him back. Tomorrow, when he meets Elon and the team, it won't just be a conversation about the project. It'll be about Chris, about the decision he's made to take his future into his own hands. Tomorrow, he'll be ready. The morning sun filters through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Tesla headquarters, casting a warm glow across the modern, minimalist office space. Chris stands by his desk, staring at the wall of screens before him. The familiar hum of the building, a sharp contrast to the quiet of the gas station he left behind. The once overwhelming sense of being out of place has begun to fade, replaced by a quiet determination. He's no longer the unsure coder fumbling through a new world. He's the one leading a project that could change the future. But as the day begins, so does the weight of what he has taken on. The pressure to perform, to succeed, to meet the high expectations set by Elon and the team. Chris can feel it rising, even as he tries to push it aside. The challenges are different now. It's no longer about understanding the complex algorithms he's building. It's about understanding his role as a leader. And that, more than anything, makes him pause. He runs a hand through his hair, still unsure of how he's supposed to balance all of it. The technical, the personal, the leadership. Every team meeting feels like a test, one where he has to prove he's worthy of the trust Elon has placed in him. It's not just the code anymore. It's the people, the decisions, and the sheer magnitude of what they're building together. At 9 a.m., the team gathers for their weekly check-in. The conference room is sleek, filled with sharp, focused faces. The team members are discussing timelines, testing protocols, and refinement strategies for the AI project. Chris watches them, feeling the familiar unease bubbling up in his chest. The room is filled with experts, people who have been in the industry for years. And then there's him, a self-taught programmer with no formal background, now standing at the helm of a groundbreaking project. The conversation swirls around him, technical jargon and rapid-fire ideas filling the air. Chris listens intently, absorbing everything, trying to make sense of it all. He's aware that this is where his leadership needs to shine, but it's hard to step forward when everyone else seems to have a clear sense of direction. Just as the conversation starts to lose focus, Chris clears his throat. The room quiets and all eyes shift toward him. It's a subtle shift, but it feels monumental. "I think we need to reframe how we approach the next stage," Chris says, his voice steady, but carrying more authority than he feels. "We've been so focused on refinement that we're missing the bigger picture. This AI system isn't just about improving what we have. It's about pushing the boundaries, creating something adaptive, something that evolves in real time, and not just within a controlled environment." There's a pause. A few team members exchange glances, but then one of the senior engineers, Emma, speaks up. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Chris straightens in his chair, feeling the weight of their eyes on him. "We need to start thinking beyond just functionality. I want to see this system interact with the real world, outside of controlled test cases. Let's build scenarios that challenge its learning capacity, push its limits. The AI needs to adapt to chaos, not just order. That's where its true power lies." The room falls silent for a moment as the team processes what he's said. Chris holds his breath, unsure of how they'll react. He's thrown out a bold idea, one that could either inspire or alienate them. But then, Emma nods thoughtfully, followed by another engineer, Max, who adds, "It's ambitious, but it could work." Slowly, the team begins to warm to the idea. Chris finds himself caught in a wave of momentum, his earlier hesitation replaced by something else, a growing confidence. They begin brainstorming, tossing out ideas, refining the approach. The conversation becomes lively, energetic, a flurry of creativity and possibility. By the end of the meeting, Chris realizes something. He's not just contributing ideas anymore. He's driving the direction. The team is following his lead, not because of his title, but because they believe in the vision he's setting. There's a shift in how they interact with him. It's not just about the tech anymore, it's about trust. And for the first time, Chris feels like he's truly earned it. As the meeting wraps up and the team scatters to their respective tasks, Chris lingers by the window, looking out at the sprawling Tesla campus. The weight of responsibility is still there, but it's different now. He's no longer just the guy struggling to catch up. He's the one shaping the path forward. His phone buzzes in his pocket, and he pulls it out, finding a text from Elon. "Great work today. Keep pushing the boundaries. This is just the beginning." A small smile tugs at Chris's lips as he reads the message. It's a simple acknowledgement, but it means more than Elon knows. The praise isn't just about the project, it's about Chris himself. And for the first time, he feels like he belongs here. He's no longer an imposter. He's part of something bigger, something that could change the world. As he heads back to his desk, he feels a sense of clarity settling over him. There will be more challenges ahead, no doubt, but for the first time, he knows he's ready to face them. He's not just leading a project, he's leading a revolution. And the best part? He doesn't have to do it alone. A few weeks later, the AI system is finally beginning to show its true potential. The code is evolving, but so is Chris. With each new challenge, he's learning not only how to refine the AI, but how to manage his team, make decisions quickly, and maintain his own sense of direction amid the pressures of leadership. It's a balance that some days feels impossible to maintain. But there's a spark in him now that wasn't there before, a belief that he can actually lead this project to success. Today, however, is different. Chris stands in front of the large display screen in the conference room, watching as the latest iteration of the AI system runs its final test. The data streams across the screen, numbers and graphs dancing in a chaotic yet organized pattern. For the first time, everything feels aligned. The tests they've been conducting have been successful, far more successful than he ever imagined. The AI is adapting to real-world scenarios, making decisions, and adjusting in ways that felt almost impossible when they first started. But Chris knows the hard work is far from over. As the final test draws to a close, he watches closely, knowing that the next steps will require even more precision. One wrong move, one flaw in the system, could bring everything crashing down. "Let's do it," Chris says quietly as he presses the button to run the final command. The room falls silent as the system executes the last set of instructions. For a long moment, nothing happens. The team, who has been gathered around the screen for the past hour, waits with bated breath. Then, the AI responds. The system adapts, recognizes the input, and adjusts in real time, exactly as Chris had envisioned. The room erupts into applause, and Chris feels a rush of pride. It's not just about the technology. It's about the moment when everything finally clicks. The culmination of weeks of hard work, sleepless nights, and countless failures along the way. Elon, who had been watching from the back of the room, steps forward, a smile on his face. "Well done, Chris," he says, his voice steady, but filled with pride. "This is a major breakthrough. I knew you had it in you." Chris, his heart still racing, looks up at Elon, trying to maintain his composure. "We did it," All of us, he says, acknowledging the team's contribution. The sense of collaboration in the room is palpable. This is no longer just his project. It belongs to everyone who has poured their effort into making this vision a reality. But even as Chris basks in the moment of victory, he feels the familiar pang of uncertainty tugging at the edges of his mind. This is just the beginning. There are still so many questions to answer, so many hurdles to clear. The AI may be capable of adapting in real time, but how will it handle even more complex scenarios? Will it scale to the level they need it to? Elon seems to read his mind. The next stage is even bigger, Chris, he says, his tone now serious. We've got a foundation, but now we need to see how this works in the real world. We need to integrate it into systems that will test its limits. Chris nods, the weight of Elon's words sinking in. He knows this is just the start of something bigger than himself. I'm ready, he says, more confidently than he feels. We'll push it further. As the team begins to gather their things and head out, Chris lingers for a moment, his eyes fixed on the screen. The breakthrough is exciting, yes, but it's also a reminder of how far they still have to go. The stakes are rising, and the responsibility to make sure this works isn't something he can ignore. Later that evening, as Chris sits alone at his desk, going over the test data, he's interrupted by a familiar ping on his phone. It's a message from Lucas. "How's it going, champ?" "You're changing the game, I know it." Chris smiles at the message, but it doesn't completely erase the tension he feels. "It's going well," he types back, "but there's still a lot to figure out." He sets his phone down and takes a deep breath. For a moment, he allows himself to feel the weight of everything that's happened, the breakthrough, the praise, the overwhelming sense of accomplishment. But he also feels the sense of responsibility that comes with it. This isn't just about making a great AI. It's about making sure it works in the real world. And that means moving beyond theory, beyond controlled tests, and into the unknown. Chris leans back in his chair, staring at the screen in front of him. He's made it this far, but the real challenge, the one that will define this project, is still ahead of him. Tomorrow, they'll take it to the next level. And for the first time, Chris feels the excitement of the unknown, the excitement of leading something that could change everything. It's not just the breakthrough that matters now, it's the path they'll take next. And Chris knows he's ready for it. The days that follow the breakthrough are a blur. Chris has never felt more alive or more burdened than he does now. Every conversation, every meeting is a reminder that they've crossed a threshold, a point of no return. What was once an ambitious project is now a living, breathing system, with the potential to change industries, reshape entire sectors, and push the boundaries of what's possible with AI. Yet, as the excitement of the initial success fades, Chris feels the weight of his role pressing down on him more than ever. The praise from Elon, the cheers from the team, all seem distant now. The true work has just begun. Scaling the system, integrating it into complex real-world applications, those are the challenges that lie ahead, and they are far from simple. One evening, Chris finds himself in the conference room alone, staring at the massive screen in front of him. Data flows across the screen in real time, illustrating both the progress and the glaring gaps in their work. The AI is performing better than expected, but it's not flawless. There are inconsistencies, unexpected reactions to certain stimuli, and anomalies in the data that need to be addressed. For the first time since joining Tesla, Chris feels a wave of doubt creep in. Can we really make this work at scale? The thought lingers, a quiet but insistent whisper in the back of his mind. A knock on the door pulls him from his thoughts. Elon enters, looking as composed as ever, though there's a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. "You've been at this for hours, haven't you?" Elon asks, a slight smile playing at his lips. Chris rubs his eyes, nodding. Yeah, I'm just going through the test data again. There's progress, but I'm starting to see some issues we need to address before we go any further. Elon steps closer to the screen, studying the data with the same level of intensity Chris has come to expect from him. There will always be issues, Elon says, his voice calm but firm. The real test is whether we're able to solve them, adapt, and move forward. But Chris, what you've built here, this is more than I expected, and I know you've only scratched the surface. Chris turns toward him, a hint of frustration creeping into his voice. It's not enough, Elon. We're on the brink of something huge, but I'm still unsure if we can make it work outside of these controlled environments. We need more data, more tests, and more time. Elon watches him quietly for a moment, as though weighing his words. Then, with a slight nod, he responds, "The real world doesn't give us time, Chris. But you're right about one thing. We need to push the boundaries even further. We need to test it in ways no one else has." Chris exhales slowly, feeling the weight of the conversation pressing in. I know. It feels like every step forward means two more obstacles appear. The pressure is getting to me. Elon places a hand on his shoulder, an uncharacteristically gentle gesture. The pressure is part of the process. But you're not alone in this. Your team believes in you. Hell, I believe in you. You've already accomplished something that many people thought was impossible. And this is just the beginning. Chris meets his gaze, a mixture of gratitude and doubt swirling within him. I just need to know if I can keep leading this, if I can keep pushing the team, pushing myself without losing sight of the goal. Elon gives him a small but meaningful smile. You already have, Chris. You've shown everyone here that you're capable of far more than you thought possible. The next step is about trusting yourself as much as the people around you trust you. As the words settle, Chris feels a new sense of resolve building inside him. He may not have all the answers, but he knows that his ability to lead doesn't lie in perfection. It lies in resilience, in the willingness to confront the obstacles head-on and find a way forward, even when the path seems unclear. Later that night, as Chris walks through the Tesla campus, he feels a strange sense of clarity. The weight of leadership is heavy, yes, but it's also something he's beginning to embrace. The team isn't just looking to him for technical expertise, they're looking for vision, for someone who can guide them through the uncertainty. And that responsibility, though daunting, is something Chris realizes he's ready to shoulder. The following morning, he calls a meeting with his team, his heart racing as he stands in front of them. There's no grand speech, no carefully rehearsed lines. Instead, Chris speaks from the heart, acknowledging the challenges they face, but also the opportunities they have to change the world. We've hit a milestone, he begins, his voice steady but passionate. But the real work starts now. We need to push harder, test further, and keep adapting. I know it won't be easy, but I believe in this team, and I believe in what we're building. The room is quiet for a moment, but then, one by one, the team members nod in agreement. They don't just see him as the leader because of his title, they see him as someone who's willing to fight for the project, to fight for the future they're all creating together. As the meeting wraps up and the team scatters to their tasks, Chris stands there for a moment, a quiet sense of pride swelling within him. It's not just the breakthroughs, the technology, or the accolades that matter now. It's the trust, the collaboration, and the belief in one another that will carry them forward. And with that realization, Chris knows that whatever comes next, whatever challenges they face, they will face them together. And for the first time, he feels certain that they will succeed. Weeks pass in a blur, each day filled with the relentless pursuit of perfection. The AI system is evolving, improving faster than Chris could have hoped for. But with the progress comes new pressure. Every success brings with it the unspoken expectation that the next step must be even more impressive, more groundbreaking. It's a weight that grows heavier with each passing day. Chris finds himself in the conference room once again, surrounded by the team, who are now deeply invested in pushing the AI to the next level. Their work has become more than just a technical project. It's a race against time, against competition, against their own self-imposed limitations. "All right," Chris says, standing at the head of the table. His voice carries more authority now than it ever has, though there's a trace of uncertainty beneath the surface. He's learned the technicalities, the leadership skills, but the fear of failure still lingers. He can't let it show. Not now. Not when the stakes are this high. We've made great strides, but the real test is coming now. We need to scale this. We need to take the AI from a prototype to a fully functional system that can handle millions of variables at once. We're not just testing it in isolated scenarios anymore. We need to see how it adapts to the real world. The room falls silent. The engineers and developers are staring at their screens, but Chris knows they're all processing what he just said. They all know what's at stake. There's no turning back now. Emma, one of the senior engineers, speaks up, her voice calm but skeptical. "What exactly are you proposing? We've been running it in controlled environments, but scaling it to handle real-time global data is another thing entirely." Chris looks directly at her, his gaze unwavering. "I know it's a leap, but if we don't push it, we'll never know what it's truly capable of. We've spent weeks perfecting the system in isolation, but it's time to put it to the test. We need to introduce it to chaos, to unpredictability." He lets the words hang in the air for a moment. It's a bold idea, and he can feel the weight of their eyes on him. This is the point where many would hesitate, where they'd find a safer route, a more controlled experiment. But Chris knows that the future of this project lies in the unknown. Max, another member of the team, leans forward. "It's risky," he says, his tone pragmatic. "If we fail, it could set us back months, maybe longer." Chris nods, acknowledging the truth of Max's words. But this is the moment that will define them. "I'm aware of the risks," he responds, "but we're not here to play it safe. We're here to change the world. If we don't take the risk, we'll never get to where we want to be." There's a long pause before Elon speaks up from the back of the room. His presence is calm, but commanding. Chris is right. It's time to go beyond the controlled tests. Let's see if this AI can handle real-world complexity. If we fail, we'll learn from it. But if we succeed, if we truly unlock its potential, it'll be a game changer. Chris turns to Elon, grateful for his support, but also aware of the immense responsibility that comes with this decision. This isn't just about technology anymore. It's about leadership, about guiding this team through the unknown. The next few days are filled with frenetic energy. Chris and the team work long hours, refining the AI, preparing it for the next stage. They develop new tests, throw new challenges at it, and monitor every decision it makes, every piece of data it processes. It's chaos. But chaos, Chris realizes, is what they need. Late one evening, as Chris sits alone in the conference room, reviewing the latest results, a familiar ping vibrates from his phone. It's a message from Lucas, the old friend who had always believed in him. "How's the project going? You still fighting the good fight?" Chris stares at the message, a small smile tugging at his lips. He types back quickly. "The good fight is never easy, but we're getting there. We're about to take the next big step." There's a brief pause before Lucas replies, "I know you're going to make it happen. Just remember, it's about the journey, not just the destination." Chris leans back in his chair, letting the words settle over him. He's been so focused on the end goal, on making the project succeed that he's forgotten to appreciate how far he's come. He remembers the gas station, the sleepless nights spent coding alone, the self-doubt that almost held him back. And yet, here he is, on the cusp of something greater than he ever imagined. The journey has been long, but it's not over yet. The next day, Chris stands in front of the team once more, ready to take the next step. They are about to enter uncharted territory. But for the first time, Chris feels like he's not just leading a team, he's leading a revolution. "We're about to push this system beyond its limits," he says, his voice steady. "But we're doing it together. No matter what happens, we're learning. And that's what counts." The team responds with a collective nod, the weight of the task ahead settling in. They're not just working on a project, they're part of something much bigger. They're about to challenge everything they know about AI, about technology, about the future. As Chris watches his team prepare, he realizes that this moment, the risk, the challenge, is exactly where he belongs. It's not just the technology that's evolving, it's him. He's no longer the uncertain coder in a gas station. He's the leader of a movement, a team, and a project that could change the world. And with that thought, he steps forward, ready to face whatever comes next. The days following the AI's groundbreaking test run at Tesla feel like a blur. The team is buzzing with energy, the stakes higher than ever, and Chris finds himself walking a fine line between exhilaration and pressure. Every decision feels monumental, every test a reflection of the success or failure that could redefine their work. Yet, through all the adrenaline and long hours, there's one constant: Elon Musk. Elon has been more than just a mentor or leader in these past few weeks. He's become a relentless driving force, his vision for the future of AI fueling the team's efforts. His presence is always felt even when he's not physically in the room. He's there in the decisions they make, in the scope of their goals, in the relentless pursuit of something bigger. It's clear that Elon is as invested in the project as ever, maybe more so now, as it inches closer to being more than just an idea. On a Thursday morning, as Chris walks into Tesla's main building, the usual buzz in the air seems even more intense. The walls are adorned with banners announcing an upcoming industry conference, a pivotal moment where Tesla is going to present its latest AI advancements to the world. This isn't just a showcase, it's a chance to lead the conversation about the future of artificial intelligence and autonomous systems. And Chris knows that the world is watching. He's standing in front of the large conference room, going over the final details for the presentation, when he feels the familiar presence beside him. Elon. "How are we feeling?" Elon's voice is steady, but there's a certain excitement that lingers in his words. His eyes are scanning the final graphs and projections on the screen, ever the perfectionist, ever the visionary. Chris turns to him, nodding. "I think we're ready. The data checks out, the system's working as expected, but..." Chris hesitates, a small sliver of doubt creeping in. "What if we're still too early? What if people think we're pushing the boundaries too far too soon?" Elon meets his gaze, his expression unreadable, then cracks a small smile. "Chris, the future doesn't wait for anyone. If we wait for everything to be perfect, we'll be left behind. We're on the edge of something that could change the industry, the world, and the truth is, no one will be more prepared for this moment than us." Chris takes a breath, the weight of Elon's words sinking in. He knows Elon is right. The world is watching, waiting for them to take this leap, and they can't afford to hesitate. As the presentation looms closer, Chris is thrust into a whirlwind of meetings, preparation, and last-minute adjustments. There are moments when his nerves spike, when the pressure of leading such a monumental shift feels overwhelming. But with Elon by his side, offering advice, challenging his ideas, and reminding him of their shared vision, Chris begins to feel more and more like he's ready for the challenge. The day of the conference arrives, and Tesla's headquarters is buzzing with activity. Executives, engineers, and industry leaders fill the halls, discussing the future of AI and technology. Chris walks into the main presentation hall, a massive space filled with hundreds of seats, all facing a large stage where he and Elon will unveil the future of Tesla's AI system. Elon stands beside him as the crowd starts to gather. The air is thick with anticipation. Chris is about to speak in front of some of the most influential figures in the tech world, and he can feel the weight of it all. "You ready?" Elon asks, his voice calm but with an undeniable edge of excitement. Chris takes a deep breath. "Yeah, let's do it." Elon places a hand on his shoulder, giving him a firm, supportive squeeze. "Remember, you've been leading this from the beginning. The world's just catching up to you now." The lights dim and the spotlight shifts to the stage. Chris steps forward, his heart pounding, but there's a fire inside him now. Something he didn't have when he first walked through Tesla's doors. He's not just presenting an idea, he's presenting the future. "Elon and I are here today to show you the next generation of AI." Chris begins, his voice steady. "This is more than just a machine that learns. This is a system that adapts, grows, and evolves in ways we could have only imagined a few years ago. And we're just getting started." The audience is silent as Chris walks them through the potential of the AI, explaining the intricacies of its design, its capabilities, and the broader implications for the industry. As he speaks, he can feel Elon's presence at his side, not just physically, but in the quiet confidence that has taken root within him. Elon's belief in him, in the project, has become a driving force. When Chris finishes, the room bursts into applause. The energy is electric. Chris looks over at Elon, who gives him a nod of approval. The unspoken message is clear. They've done it. They've taken the first step toward something far greater than just Tesla's success. It's about reshaping the future. As they leave the stage, Elon turns to Chris, a small smile on his face. "You did great. I told you you were ready." Chris exhales deeply, feeling the tension leave his shoulders. "Thanks. I couldn't have done it without you." Elon's smile widens, and for a brief moment, the tension of the past few months disappears. "This is just the beginning. We're about to change everything, Chris. The world will never be the same again." Chris nods, the weight of the statement sinking in. For the first time, he fully realizes the magnitude of what they're building, not just for Tesla, but for the world. And with that realization, a new chapter begins. The aftermath of the presentation is a whirlwind. Tesla has captured the world's attention, and the ripple effect is palpable. Industry leaders, media outlets, and even competitors are now scrutinizing their every move. The project has moved beyond the confines of Tesla's research and development rooms. This is now a global conversation. Chris, though still in the throes of this new reality, feels a sense of purpose building within him that he never thought possible. The rush of the presentation, the applause, the validation, those fleeting moments have passed. Now, it's about execution, and execution, he's learning, is a whole different beast. As the days pass, the demands on Chris's time intensify. There are meetings with investors, media interviews, and more technical discussions than he can keep track of. Yet amidst the chaos, Elon remains a constant presence. His energy is relentless, his belief unwavering, but more than anything, it's his guidance that keeps Chris grounded. One morning, as Chris walks into the office, he finds Elon standing by the window, staring out at the campus. The early morning light casts long shadows over the building, giving the scene an almost cinematic feel. It's quiet, the calm before the storm, and Chris approaches cautiously, unsure if Elon's deep in thought or just lost in his own mind. "Hey," Chris says, his voice tentative. "Got a minute?" Elon turns, his face unreadable for a moment before breaking into a small smile. "Always for you," he replies, motioning for Chris to join him. Chris steps up beside him, glancing out at the sprawling Tesla campus. "It's a lot to take in, huh? I mean, we've been pushing for so long, and now it's happening. The world's watching." Elon nods slowly. "Yes and no. We've had moments of success, sure, but the real test is how we move forward from here. We've started something that's going to change everything: AI, transportation, how we live our lives. But it's easy to get lost in the noise of it all. The challenge is making sure we stay on track." Chris absorbs Elon's words, feeling the weight of them settle in his chest. He's seen Elon's calm, unwavering focus before, but now it feels different. The stakes are real. The world is watching, and he, along with his team, are the ones who will shape the future. "I know it's not just about the technology," Chris says quietly. "It's about leading the team through all of this, keeping them focused on the bigger picture. But what if? What if I can't keep up? What if I miss something, overlook a problem, or make a decision that sets us back?" Elon looks at him for a moment, and for the first time, there's a softness in his eyes. "Chris, that's the burden of leadership. The fear of failure will always be there, but you can't let it paralyze you. You've got the vision, the knowledge, and the people around you who trust you. You'll face setbacks. Everyone does. But it's how you react that matters. Your job is not to be perfect. It's to keep moving forward." Chris nods, feeling the truth in Elon's words. The fear hasn't gone away, but somehow it feels manageable now. He's no longer standing alone on the edge of this massive project. He's part of something much bigger than himself, and his role is to guide it, not control every outcome. "Thanks," Chris says, his voice steadier now. "I think I needed to hear that." Elon smiles again, a reassuring smile that has become familiar. "You're doing great. Just keep moving, and you'll see this through." The following weeks are a blur of activity. The team dives into refining the AI, scaling it for real-world applications, and preparing it for the next stage: integration with Tesla's existing autonomous driving systems. It's a challenging, technical journey, and Chris finds himself in the trenches with his team more than ever. But there's something different about the way he's leading now. He's no longer hesitant, no longer questioning his place in this vast, unknown landscape. Instead, he's starting to trust his instincts, to make decisions quickly and with confidence. Despite the growing pressure, Chris feels a strange sense of balance. It's as though, for the first time, he's truly embraced the challenge ahead of him. He's no longer worried about the fear of failure. He's more focused on what happens when they succeed. And he knows that success will require more than just technical brilliance. It will require resilience, determination, and an unwavering commitment to the vision they've all been working toward. Late one night, as Chris walks through the quiet halls of Tesla, he runs into Elon in the corridor. Elon is on his way out, his jacket slung over his shoulder, looking as composed as ever. "Heading out for the night?" Chris asks, glancing at the clock. It's late, and Chris is beginning to feel the fatigue creeping in, though he's nowhere near ready to leave. Elon nods. "I've got a few calls to make, but yeah, just checking in. How's the team doing?" Chris takes a moment before answering, considering the question more deeply than he expects. "We're good, we're pushing forward, but it feels different now. I don't know how to explain it, but I think we're starting to believe in this thing. Not just the AI, but what it can really do." Elon smiles knowingly, his eyes scanning Chris's face. "That's exactly where we need to be. Belief, Chris. Not just in the tech, but in each other. This is bigger than any of us. The world is going to change because of what you and your team are doing. For a moment, they stand there in silence, the weight of their words settling in. Chris feels a surge of pride, but also something else. Gratitude. Gratitude for the opportunity, for the team, for the unwavering support from Elon. You know, Chris says slowly, I used to think that I wasn't meant for this, that I'd never get to do something this big. But now, I can see it. We're really going to make this work. Elon gives him a final, thoughtful look. That's the spirit. And remember, you're not alone. This is only the beginning. As Elon walks off into the night, Chris feels a renewed sense of purpose. There's still a long road ahead, with challenges that he can't yet see. But for the first time, he feels ready for whatever comes next. As the months pass, Tesla's AI project continues to exceed expectations. Chris and his team are no longer just testing a new system, they're shaping a new era. Every day brings new challenges, but also new triumphs. The AI, now integrated with Tesla's self-driving technology, is proving to be a game changer. It's learning faster, adapting in real time, and handling complexities no one could have predicted. The project is a beacon of innovation, and Chris finds himself at the heart of it all. But with success comes scrutiny. The media attention intensifies, and competitors are no longer looking at Tesla with admiration. They're looking for weaknesses, seeking any cracks they can exploit. The pressure to stay ahead of the curve is immense. Yet, in these moments of intense focus and high stakes, Chris begins to see the true weight of the responsibility he's carrying. Not just for the project, but for the people who depend on him, and for the world that's watching. One afternoon, as Chris stands in the control room watching data roll in from the latest tests, Elon walks in, his usual calm demeanor unshaken. There's a quiet intensity about him today, a sense that something is on the horizon. "How are we looking?" Elon asks, his eyes scanning the monitors, though his tone is anything but casual. Chris glances at the figures on the screen. Better than ever. The system's adapting perfectly to the new challenges. It's learning exponentially. Elon nods, but there's something else in his gaze. Something that's always been present but feels more urgent now. You've built something incredible, Chris. But you know the real challenge is not just creating something groundbreaking, it's making sure it can stand the test of time. Everyone's going to be watching, waiting for us to slip up. Chris feels the weight of Elon's words settle in. They've come so far, but the road ahead is uncertain. I know, but the team is solid. We've put in the work. We'll keep pushing forward. Elon steps closer, looking him in the eyes. You've come a long way. You've proven yourself, not just as a programmer, but as a leader. You've done more than I could have asked for. But remember, this doesn't end with the next success. It's about vision. You have to keep the vision clear, even when the pressure's on. Chris absorbs Elon's words with a newfound clarity. This isn't just about leading a project anymore. It's about leading a movement, a shift in how the world interacts with technology. It's about changing the way people think, act, and move forward. Later that week, they're ready for the biggest test yet, a global launch of the fully integrated AI system across Tesla's fleet of self-driving cars. It's the moment they've been working towards since the beginning, the culmination of months of preparation, countless tests, and sleepless nights. The day of the launch arrives, and the entire team gathers in the control room, watching as the first batch of cars hits the road. Chris stands at the forefront, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety swirl within him. It's finally happening. The world will see what they've built. The first few hours are tense. Data is constantly flowing in. Feedback from users begins to pour in, and the system undergoes its first real test in the real world. Chris watches the screens closely, his heart pounding with every fluctuation in the data. But as the hours pass, he feels the tension begin to ease. The system is performing flawlessly, better than anyone could have hoped. The cars are not just navigating streets, they're adapting to the chaos of the real world. Elon steps into the room, his gaze sharp as he scans the data. "We did it," he says, his voice calm but filled with pride. "You did it." Chris feels a wave of relief and pride wash over him. It's been a long road to get here, and the weight of leadership, of managing expectations and overcoming setbacks, is finally beginning to feel worth it. The journey is far from over, but for the first time, Chris feels like he can see the future clearly. He's no longer just a cog in a machine. He's shaping the future of technology. As the day winds down, Chris finds himself alone for a moment, standing in front of a large window overlooking the Tesla campus. The sun is setting, casting a golden glow over the buildings. He takes a deep breath, feeling a quiet sense of accomplishment settle within him. This is what he's worked for. This is the change he's been a part of. A message pings on his phone, interrupting his thoughts. It's a text from Lucas, the old friend who had always believed in him. "You did it, man. I knew you could. You're changing the world." Chris smiles as he types a response. "We did it. All of us." The phone buzzes again, and this time it's a message from Elon. "Great work today. The future is in your hands now. Keep leading, Chris. You're not just building AI, you're building tomorrow." Chris looks out at the horizon, the weight of those words sinking in. The future is indeed in his hands. The road ahead is still long, filled with unknowns, but Chris feels ready for it. He's not just part of the future anymore, he's creating it. And as he walks back into the control room, his team gathered around, all eyes on him. Chris knows that they've only just begun. The world is changing, and with it, Chris is changing too. He's no longer the uncertain coder at a gas station. He's a leader, a visionary, a creator. And the journey, with all its challenges, is just beginning.